This is Bilbao. This is the meeting point. And this is Slow TV Radio. Broadcasting not only to Bilbao, but around the world. Hello and welcome back to another edition of Around the Table from the meeting point here in Bilbao. And in this week's episode we're talking about speaking. So, how long do you think we as human beings have been speaking then? Have you got any idea?
No.
That's okay, because nobody has.
Okay.
Well, people have ideas, but nobody knows. This is the great mystery, because nobody would really know, would they? Because it's not recorded.
Oh, of course, yeah.
We know when people started writing, because we've got evidence where people found old pieces of writing.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence for speaking. So it's all speculative. It's probably, some people say 500,000 years. But I saw somebody who's an authority on these things called Dan Everett, I think his name is. And he speculates that it might go back to nearly 2 million.
Wow.
And that's based on the kind of artifacts that people left behind. And he says if they had this amount of, it's not technology, well, it's technology for the time, like the stone arrowheads and things like that.
Yeah.
He said to make them it's quite complex, and to teach somebody to make one, you would have to have some sort of language that went with it.
Can you just copy it then?
Well, he says no. He says it's too complicated. Because if you look at chimpanzees, they copy, well, we use the verb ape to copy.
Oh.
So there you go. That's why we use that verb. Because in fact, even chimpanzees, they've got technology, because they get that little piece of grass and put it down the hole to get the termites. And there's some places where they smash nuts with a rock.
Yeah.
But the adults don't teach the babies. The babies just observe and copy.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So they don't actually teach them. But apparently, making a flint arrowhead, this person says, now I don't know if he's right, nobody knows whether he's right or not, but his hypothesis is that you would need some sort of language to go with it, because it's quite a complicated thing.
Okay.
And to teach someone else, you'd need to be speaking at the same time.
Okay.
So he says. But certainly there's other technologies. For example, when the first people went to Australia, which is thought to be about 60,000 years ago, they must have gone in quite elaborate boats. They must have had some complex way of speaking, because it's going to a place which is beyond the sea that they couldn't see. So they had to say, look, we're going to do this. And they had to organise people to build a form of transport,
of course,
and to get everyone and all their supplies on a vessel and go across the sea. You need organisation, don't you?
Yeah. I guess like speaking like we are doing now is not necessarily what they did. It's just a form of communication, yeah?
Yeah. Well, it's one of the great mysteries of where it came from. I would presume that there was other communication going back a long way.
Yeah.
We must have had some very primitive system, maybe not as elaborate, because in human communication we can hypothesize and speculate about what might happen in the future. And in all languages you can talk about the past and how the past might have been different. And third conditionals, basically. That kind of thing is possible in all languages, but in animal languages they wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
See, they say animals can communicate, but basically they're not communicating much more than emotions as far as we know. Like, when a dog is angry, because it growls, and if they're in pain, they go, as we discussed in a previous video.
Yeah.
But other than angry, happy, in pain, and for some birds it's like trying to find a mate. There's that word mate again. from a previous episode. You know, they communicate that kind of thing.
Or when they're in danger, don't they, monkeys?
Oh, there's alarm calls, yeah.
Yeah.
And also there's some types of animal, I think it's like a groundhog or something like that. And they make different noises to where the danger comes from.
Ah, yeah.
There's one, it has, it makes a noise that's the alarm for there's a snake coming, and they all run up the tree. And it's got another noise for, oh, I've seen an eagle, and they all run down the hole. So they have to differentiate between two dangers so they know where to hide.
Yeah, very good, very
Because
good.
hiding down the hole is not any good if a snake's coming.
Yeah.
It's only good for eagle protection.
Very survival, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
So animal communication is not as complex as human communication. And I think human communication must be our biggest advantage. Because if you think of other animals can run really fast,
Yeah.
or they're
Stronger.
they're strong and they've got big teeth and claws.
Yeah.
They
can fly.
They can fly, yeah. But we can't really do much, really, apart from be intelligent.
Yeah. And together.
And together, yeah. So I think that's why the communication's important, because we
Yeah.
survive as a group. Because
Yeah.
individually, if you think of primitive people, they had to be in a group of 30. They say around about 30 to 50 people in a group.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you were outside of the group, if you went out on your own, you wouldn't last very long, I don't think.
No.
We rely on other people, so that that community way of existing has always been with us. So our powers of communication must give us a huge advantage over other animals. Because if you think about it, the complexity of our communication system is quite amazing. If for example, somebody in our primitive ancestry, somebody went off and they went up those mountains over there and looked on the other side and saw that there was a big lake full of fish and then herds of wild animals, deer or something,
Yeah.
and then you could come back and you could say, hey, I went over there. Even if you didn't have language, you see, we have symbolism, which means we could act it, yeah? We could do
Yeah.
hand gestures to show river, and you could go like this to show that you're a deer. I'm doing hands on my head to show deer antlers.
Yeah.
You could use symbolism even without speaking. We could act it out. Whereas if you were a chimpanzee and you went off and discovered something like that, they wouldn't even have the symbolism to do hand gestures or imitate the noises. Like if you'd seen a cow and you didn't know how to say cow, you just imitate the noise. Yeah. But even a chimpanzee wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Or the other chimpanzees wouldn't understand what they were
That would
doing.
be really confusing.
Yeah. Or a chimpanzee making cow noises.
What are you doing?
But we got that ability to come back and report, and also I think that ability, as it's something that's helped us survive, I think that's why we have this sort of incessant obligation to tell people stories.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, anybody that's been anywhere, when they come back, they tell everyone about what they've seen.
Yeah, and people love listening to stories.
Yeah.
And telling stories. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a fundamental part of our survival, because it's how our ancestors survived,
Yeah.
by sharing information, because they might not want to go to the other side of the mountain to see this big lake that our friend's been telling us about. But it's information in the group that one day they might be short of food and someone might say, oh, remember when old Og went over to the other side of the mountain? He said there was a lake over there, so let's all go over there.
Yeah.
So the sharing of the information was a vital part of people's survival. And I think that's why we still do it. Because we're always sharing information and giving advice. And you see someone doing something, you say, oh, you should do it like this. Because we feel obliged to help out.
Yeah.
But that's how we got here. That's how we survived.
Yeah, it's very interesting that, isn't it? Just thinking about how long we've been doing it, and
Yeah.
we still do it. Yeah.
Because we're always sharing information, we share advice, and we ask for advice.
Yeah.
You know, we need to. It's like the collective knowledge as well. Then we don't just depend on what we know, but we've also, because we've got communication, we've got the knowledge of the whole group. Yeah. If you were a chimpanzee with a problem, like you can't go to your grandmother and start telling her all about it. It must be a very lonely life being a chimpanzee.
Yeah.
What you can do is make, this is the noise for when I'm angry, and this is the noise for when I'm sad, and that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah. They
And
have the face as well.
Yeah,
They have expressions.
they got a few facial expressions, yeah, but I don't think they're our facial expressions are apparently quite complicated as animals go, because we've got quite a big part of our brain, I think it's prefrontal cortex, which is given to analysing facial expressions. It's quite important. That's why people with that
it's a kind of autism.
yeah
Asperger.
those people with those kind of problems, they find it difficult to read people's expressions, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's a problem in that same part of the brain.
Yeah.
But that part of the brain in dogs and rats, there's a big front part of the brain which is just for smell.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But ours has changed, it developed, and it went more. We gave up the smell thing because smell is not that important to people, not like it is to dogs.
Yeah.
So that part of our brain is for reading facial expressions, so that's quite important for us, yeah. And probably for chimpanzees as well. Yeah, so communication, very, very important. And you think about it, we have all our history and we have all our accumulated knowledge. We can pass on the information.
Yeah.
So it goes from one generation to the next. Otherwise we'd constantly be reinventing the wheel, wouldn't we? We'd have no technology.
So, how do we learn our first language then? How does it work?
Well, if you observe babies, they just make noises, don't they?
Yeah.
They listen to what's going on, and apparently they start it before they're born.
Yeah.
You can start listening to the noises around you, and babies apparently are prepared for their first language when they emerge, as it might say.
I think it's even in the fourth month when the mother is pregnant.
Yeah.
They are already getting the, not so much sound, but the rhythms.
The rhythms, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they basically imitate and make noises, because any baby, once they start practicing making noises, don't they?
Yeah.
They do the easy ones, the mama, baba, dada sort of noises, which is why we have words like mummy, daddy, baby. People think babies are talking, but really those words come from the fact that those are the noises babies make.
Yeah.
So when a mother gets very excited because the baby said mama,
Yeah.
it's the other way round. The word mama exists because that's what babies say.
Yeah.
They listen and they imitate. Yeah.
But it's funny how adults say that they want to learn a language like children, but what they don't realize is that children are listening for a long time before they start speaking.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I've always had a problem with when talking about learning languages, is because adults always want books. You know?
Yeah.
And when you learn a first language, there's no books involved. You listen and you copy. You just imitate, and you work out the grammatical structures.
Yeah, you make mistakes.
Yeah. But you learn the grammatical structures on a sort of subliminal level.
Yeah.
Nobody teaches you the grammar of your first languages.
Yeah.
Until later on, when you come to study it, you find out the reasons why you do things like you do them.
Yeah.
But people just speak languages, don't they? It's like I've always said, the speaking was around for thousands and thousands of years before anyone invented a grammar book.
Yeah.
People get by perfectly well if they live out in the middle of the jungle. Maybe they don't even have a form of writing. They
Yeah.
still have grammar, but they don't even know they have grammar.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the brain now follows patterns, and the language follows patterns. So children, they listen to their parents saying something, and then they apply the same sentence
Yeah.
in a similar situation. That's
Yeah,
how you.
that's right. Yeah.
You
yeah.
try, and if it's wrong, someone will correct you,
Yeah.
and then you improve. But you just, like you say, you copy what other people say. That's how you learn.
And that pattern thing is why they make mistakes, at least in English, because there's so many irregular verbs.
Yeah.
And people say,
Same
children
here.
always say things like catched instead of caught.
Yeah, or rompido in Spanish, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
instead of
yeah.
roto. Se me ha rompido.
Yeah,
Oh.
you have to learn it's an irregular one.
Yeah.
But your automatic default mechanism would be to think, well, if you put a D on the end to make it past tense, it must apply to everything.
Yeah,
The same with irregular plurals as well, which is why young children say mouses instead of mice and things like that. They have to learn the irregular forms.
yeah. I'm reading a book now, and it's talking about that, and the mistakes children make, and it's always the same mistakes, and the stages you go through. So first you learn the present simple, for example, and you don't start using the ing form before you start using the verb to be, and it's always the same.
Right.
So it's the same in the first language. If you are learning English as a second language, you are gonna go through the same stage.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if in the book they give you this grammar order like that, you are gonna follow the same pattern.
Yeah. So I think for second language learning, I think now maybe it's different. I think for young people coming up now, I think they got a different approach.
Yeah.
That I think they've realised that just learning grammar from books doesn't work, especially with languages like English.
Well, I think they've got more options because they
This is
can
true.
watch TV on
With technology and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got access to internet, haven't they?
Yeah.
Which I suppose in a previous generation you could never watch a
Well, here
English program or listen
yeah.
to the radio.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah, that's why the listening and the speaking is so difficult for us.
Yeah. But I suppose the younger people have had more exposure. They got more chance of having native speakers, native teachers as well.
Yeah.
So they get the pronunciation from an earlier age, and they're exposed to it at an earlier age as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So previously they focused a lot more on books and grammar, and it's just all in reverse, I think. If you think of first language, it's listen, copy and speak.
Yeah.
And that's how you do the first language for years. And then later, you're probably 5 or 6 years old when you start learning to write and read with your first books. And then the second language comes along, and it's all in the book straight away. And it's grammar and things like that, which most people don't know all of those grammar terms that you have to learn when you're learning a second language.
Yeah, that's another thing that I find, that people don't know what a verb is or a noun. And it's like, I don't understand. What are you talking about?
But that's what I meant about having the grammar book.
Yeah.
Most people get through life perfectly well speaking one language, and they don't know what a verb is and what an adverb is, because they don't care. Lots of people don't know what adverbs are.
Yeah, I know.
It's very common.
Yeah.
There's a strange noise in the background there. That's the neighbour doing something in the kitchen. Apologies, we'll continue anyway. So learning second languages, that's why you need more speaking, more repetition. Yeah,
totally.
and again, like you were saying the other day, with children, they can repeat things forever, can't they?
Yeah.
Like have the same book every night or watch the same video every day.
Yeah.
And they don't mind. But a lot of adult learners, they want to go to the next unit in the book, because they think as soon as I finish this book, the sooner I can speak English.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
No. Sometimes you have to just use what you've got Because I found people before that are sort of level 3 English, and they can have a lot better conversations than people that are level 6 English, because they use what they've got.
They try, basically.
But they might not have this, in theory, the same level, but you can do a lot with it.
I think English is good to start with because the grammar is quite simple.
Yeah.
And with a little bit you can kind of have a conversation, basic conversation. So in 3 months you can learn the basics and move around just to survive.
Yeah.
Simple, because that's another thing. Children start with very basic sentences. I want this, where is that? That is here, give me some water. Whereas when you are an adult, you want to express very complex thoughts. So that's very difficult, very frustrating, because you can do it in the same way.
Yeah, because the level of conversation you want to have is that much higher.
Yeah.
So when a child is speaking, the complexity of their first ideas and the complexity of their second language is the same.
Yeah.
Whereas for adults, we've got some very complex things we want to say, and then we get frustrated because we can't say them.
Yeah. So we have to realize that we have to go back to when we were 6 and start making the same kind of sentences.
Yeah. But then when you have those complicated, when we have the conversations in the meeting point, sometimes we're getting onto quite abstract ideas, and it's quite complicated for people to express what they want to say. But when they've done that, like going into a shop and asking for something is really easy. Checking into a hotel seems, that used to be complicated, but you get so used to these complex ideas that by comparison, the regular day-to-day conversations that people have are very simple.
Yeah, that's true.
Like when I'm in Bilbao, I think if I was in a shop, I'd be in the present simple.
You always are.
I'm a very simple person.
Present. You live in the present.
But if you use a language on regular day to day, you go into the shop, you say, "I want this,"
Yeah.
Or you say, "How much is that?" You don't say, "How much would the chicken cost if Putin hadn't invaded Ukraine?" Nobody speculates about hypothetical situations in shops. It's like, I'm in the present. I want this in the present. How much does it cost in the present?
Yeah.
I don't go and buy a chicken and say, how much would it have cost if I'd come in here 5 years ago? Nobody's interested in that. We're in the real world, and the real world isn't in the present, really.
Yeah.
So you find, like you were saying, the level of language required for average day-to-day life is quite simple. And another guy I was watching, I was telling you about, the one who worked for the United Nations and spoke lots of languages and did a lot of conferences in English and things like that. And he was saying there are some languages that look really complex when you start. But once you've established what the rules are, you've basically got the language.
Yeah.
And he said English isn't like that. It starts off really simple.
Yeah.
And you can get the basics and you think, this is easy, isn't it? But it just keeps going and it keeps going.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending thing.
It is.
All the complexities just keep appearing as you go on. But like you say,
the more you know, the more difficult it is.
The more you know, the more you realise how little you know.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, the getting the basics of English is not a problem. And that's why I was saying, like, if you've got a basic level, to keep practicing and to keep using it, and get very comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's the key, I think.
And build up the fluency, so you're not thinking of it in your first language and then trying to translate, just saying it.
Yeah. Even if you make a mistake, doesn't matter. I make lots of mistakes, but you also do in your first language, don't you?
When you are
talking and you make mistakes.
I'll listen to this recording afterwards and realise how many mistakes I've made in this discussion, because I always do.
Yeah, but it's not a problem. I mean, it's communication. That's the idea.
Yeah, and it's not about perfection, is it?
Yeah.
People think it's... And this is the trouble with a lot of the exam situations where we're looking at details of language and saying, oh, we used the wrong preposition there.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't quite use that tense in the correct way.
Yeah.
But you
And
forget-
there's no context either in the
No,
exam. It's just,
no.
I don't know.
But if you're in a conversation with, if you're a second language English speaker and you go to another country and you're talking to a first language English speaker, and they don't know anything about grammar.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Phrasal verbs.
Yeah, they don't know what you've done. They're not sitting there going, that grammar wasn't quite right. I don't know about that. I wouldn't have used the continuous form there. They're not concerned with that. It's about
Yeah.
communication.
That's true, yeah.
Pronunciation is much more important than grammar
Yeah.
for communication purposes.
In English, yes.
Yeah, you can make mistakes in grammar and nobody notices, but you
Yeah.
make mistakes in pronunciation and it gets very confusing.
Yeah. How many misunderstandings have we had?
Loads. And all through pronunciation.
Yeah.
All misunderstandings that I can remember, really. Apart from occasionally someone might use the wrong preposition on something. And you know how we like to put verbs with prepositions and make little phrasal verbs and things like that.
Yeah.
You could make
But that's
a mistake.
vocabulary, really.
Yeah. But that could get confusing if you use the wrong prepositions or particles, we should say. But the vast majority of misunderstandings, or not misunderstandings, but non-understandings,
Yeah.
where it just comes out as a noise and I don't know what someone's saying,
Yeah.
usually that's pronunciation. 95% of the time, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe 99.
Yeah.
So this is why we like to do speaking in the meeting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Speaking is the most important thing for human beings, to share ideas, to learn about other people's lives, and
Yeah.
everybody's got different stories.
I think it's good. The sharing point is learning English is important, but I think sharing is even more important nowadays.
yeah.
I think the community is good. It's a good thing to have.
Yeah, because basically we're doing something that, like we were saying about the early language, people have been doing it for thousands and thousands of years, of sitting around and telling stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And asking people questions, and what do you think about this? Having little discussions about
Yeah.
things. We're just doing it in a second language.
Which is
But
challenging.
It's challenging, yeah. But I think what people are learning is it's not just about learning English. It's also a community, that we're creating a little community there. And people come together. They know that at this time every week, this little group of people are going to come and we're going to have a topic to discuss.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of vocabulary and some interesting expressions to help us along with the discussion. But I think people come out of it thinking, I learnt something, and it's not necessarily English. It's something
Yeah.
about society or...
One of your students, Jonas, said the other day that he's also learned to listen,
Yeah.
which is very important. Listen to other people's opinions and learn from that.
It's actually quite difficult to listen. A lot of people, they think they know what the other person is saying, so they don't listen.
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot when you see people discussing politics on TV and things like that. People come out and they comment at the end, and you think, well, they're not listening to what the other person was saying.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with what they've just said. You've got your own interpretation based on your preconceived ideas of what these people say. But if more people listened in the world, it would be a much better world, especially in the world of politics
Yeah.
and society, because there's a lot of societal aspects of politics, getting away from different political parties and things like that. There's a lot of things in society about rights and gay rights and feminist issues and animal rights and all this kind of thing, and nobody's really listening to the other side.
No.
They just think, I think this, they think that, therefore we just shout, and nobody's going to listen.
Yeah.
But if more people sat down and listened, they might find that they've got a lot more in common than they thought they had.
Yeah,
Which would
exactly.
bring people a bit closer together.
Yeah, so that's what we do in the meeting point then.
Yeah. Listening and speaking and sharing ideas. And sharing ideas is a wonderful thing. Because that's another point I was going to make. We were discussing this the other day as well. That sometimes you don't really know what you think because you've never really thought about, or you've never thought about how you would express your idea.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you have to explain your opinion to someone else, it sort of solidifies in your mind what your idea is, because it's always been a kind of an abstract thing.
Yeah.
And until you sit down and try to put it down in front of people for everyone to see, it's always a bit...
It's not easy. It's not easy.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a good thing, yeah. Speaking and listening together are a great combination, yeah.
And learning through sharing.
Learning through sharing, as your great slogan says, yeah.
I like it. I like it, yeah. Okay.
So I think we've covered that topic then. Should we have a game of, do you want a bit of, what's the difference?
Maybe we should leave it for another day.
Oh, that was a big one, wasn't it? Oh, yeah. Okay, no time for what's the difference then?
I think we'll leave it for next week.
Okay.
Very interesting.
It was a
Richard.
very interesting discussion, again, as usual. And I hope everyone enjoyed the nice background images of Bilbao. And, don't forget to share it with all your friends, especially if they live in Bilbao, because it's good publicity for the meeting point. If you're not in
Bilbao.
And, publicity for Bilbao for those people who are further away. Maybe there are people out there in India, in the United States, looking at these lovely images, thinking, what a fantastic city, I must visit. Well, come along, yes. Come and visit us. Yes, so don't forget to share and like and leave comments down below, because communication is what it's all about. And we'll see you next week. Well, we won't see you. You'll hear us next week. We'll be back next week.
Bye.
Bye.